Can a well-written speech make a country sound like the hero in global crisis? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to WWD, What's with Discourse? In today's episode, we will discuss a topic, a problem, or a crisis that never dies: corruption. According to Harrison, 2007, an English anthropology lecturer, corruption is the abuse of public power for private gain. Not only defining what corruption is, Harrison also questions who is able to define an act as corrupt or not, and who is included or excluded from discourse of corruption.
Her question brings us to the sample of analysis for our topic. For today's What's with Discourse, we will use a speech by Linda Thomas Greenfield, the U.S. representative at the first ever United Nations Assembly Special Session Against Corruption in June 2021. In her speech, she highlighted the Biden administration's commitment to combating corruption and urged every nation to join them to prevent and combat corruption. We and probably you might wonder, how does the US political speech represent itself as a global leader in the fight against corruption?
Corruption is a serious global problem, and how world leaders talk about it really matters. In the speech by Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield, both from the article and video, she used formal and powerful language to highlight why corruption hurt development, democracy, and everyday people. Her message is clear, strong, and meant for an international audience. To understand how this kind of message is built and delivered, we use the genre approach from discourse analysis. This theory helps us explore how speech is structured and how language is used to reach a specific goal, in this case, to spread awareness and invite global cooperation against corruption.
Genre means a type of text or speech. The speech is a political or diplomatic genre because it's delivered at a UN meeting. The genre approach here looks at how the structure of the speech has a clear order, which are opening greetings, problem explanation, US action plan, and then closing. The purpose is to inform and warn and persuade other countries to work together in fighting corruption. The audience and context of the speaker is an UN ambassador talking to global leaders, and how the tone is formal and respectful, meaning that the language and style uses are formal, serious words like transparency, accountability, and international cooperation. She does not say those exact words, but the language she uses shows the same ideas in a formal and serious way.
Now, we're going to jump into the step-by-step of genre analysis. Genre basics. The form of the genre used is a formal political speech that was delivered on June 3, 2021 at the UN or United Nations General Assembly Special Session. The speech was given by the US representative of the UN, Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield. We found that this speech took place in a formal setting and was most likely delivered to the entire nation in response to the rising cases of corruption in the country, and that the US government has ways to combat it. Based on the setting, it is possible that those who were listening to the speech at the time were delegates, world leaders, and civil society members.
We believe that this speech is intended to show the U.S. leadership in fighting corruption. UN Ambassador Greenfield states that the U.S. needs to uphold a strong defense against corruption, not just in their country but also internationally. She also mentioned an anti-corruption treaty like UNCAC and a special session called UNGAS to convince the audience to trust the U.S. leadership, hopefully engage in the anti-corruption movements, and become aware that corruption is a huge and prolonging issue. Certain values are also shown in the speech, such as the way corruption is seen as something that threatens the nation, and how everyone needs to be united to make the efforts in combating corruption for it not to go to vain.
The speaker of the speech, as mentioned before, is the U.S. representative of the United Nations, Linda Thomas Greenfield. She is speaking to the audience that consists of possibly UN members, global leaders, and of course the public audience. They are all the participants of this genre. Greenfield holds the role of a professional ambassador, while the others are constituents. We also see that she presents the U.S. as a partner in combating corruption. In addition, the eyes of online everyday watchers, the relationship between participants is a public figures and online viewers.
So the organization and style of the speech start with the intro. So the video start by thanking the former president, delegates, and civil society representative, indicating a formal acknowledgement. Then the Ambassador Greenfield mentioned the purpose of her speech regarding corruption in US and what is the impact to the country. And then switch to the body of the speech by start explaining what corruption is. Then she mentioned what they should do to prevent, reduce, and stop the corruption. Then Greenfield started to appreciate the US citizen efforts to fight and prevent corruption. Then she asked the citizen to fight the corruption. And to conclude the speech, Ambassador Greenfield reinforced the urgency to fight corruption. And then she began to persuade all of the US citizens, including the government, journalists, and private sector. She ended her speech by mentioning other meetings about fighting corruption hosted by Biden. So the stylistic features of the speech is formal and diplomatic by using appropriate language and also persuasive to the citizens.
Shared knowledge. In order for the audience to fully understand what Ambassador Greenfield's speech, the audience need to first have political and institutional knowledge, which means to understand the US governance structures and aware of the UN's role in anti-corruption efforts, UNCAC, UN Convention Against Corruption. Second, have the context of corruption discourse, which means is to be familiar with the US corruption case, such as political scandals or so corporate fraud.
In General Network, there are political speeches similar anti-corruption speech by other diplomats. There is also policy documents connects US anti-corruption strategies and US State Department's annual corruption report. And there's also media, news broadcasts such as CNN and BBC, and news page The Washington Post or Foreign Policy. And the last one is legal and advocacy text, such as Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index and UNODC or UN Office on Drugs and Crime reports regarding corruption.
So there are some critics to gender analysis because by using this analysis on the speech has its own disadvantages. Gender analysis is heavily emphasized on structure rather than the content. When we do analysis using gender methods, we focus on the structure of the speech and also how the speech is delivered and so on. But it doesn't critically examine the US citizens or maybe the president or Ambassador Greenfield herself. By using the gender approach to analyze the speech, we found that it wasn't delivered without any reason whatsoever. It has a reason. We also found the speaker's identity, their position in the speech, and their relationship with audience. Analysis by gender allows us to analyze the speech, structure, and organization, as well as shared knowledge and gender network, which mean that this speech is also connected to other forms of genre with the same topic. Through these features, the US used political speech as a tool to present itself as a committed, responsible, and leading actor in the global fight against corruption. By addressing the speech in special United Nations Convention and using structured messaging and inclusive language, the speech strengthened the US image as a global leader.
Corruption is indeed an issue that has been occurring for far too long that the government even needs to step up many times. Speeches and promises here and there already, so who else can fight against corruption if not ourselves at this point? Thank you for tuning in on What's with Discourse and see you on the next episode.